Here we go. Let's get this started right.
I broke the law in Madrid. Think I'll do it again. I got a bitch in every city that I ever been. I got the money with the something for the sadness in. People don't think about really a missing I have ever been. I got a million other tracks that I sound like this. So this now is for the kids.
My man Paul, who was Saul. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. That's 2 Timothy verse 4-7. That's how I wanted to start off this morning because we have a huge episode, big news, major events happening, and I actually don't have that much time this morning to go over them. I have less than an hour. I only have about half an hour. So I'm just going to try to give you the recap of why last night was so significant in the greater scheme of things. Fresh off the press, you may have seen my Instagram story telling you guys, I understand that not everybody who wants to be Christian or maybe has a curiosity, basically anybody who's agnostic, people who say, listen, I'm not saying God doesn't exist, but I just haven't seen my proof. Banda, good morning or good afternoon to you. I know it's afternoon where you are. This is going to be a great story, so I'm glad you're here to join me this morning to hear it. I posted a story on my Instagram saying last night, if you ever needed proof that God existed, stay tuned because I'm going to tell you all about it tomorrow morning. I got some communication last night from the big guy himself. I feel very, very fortunate, very privileged. Doesn't happen that often, being honest, as a Christian for the last 3 years, which isn't that long of a period of time, but even in the last 3 years, there's only truly been a handful of occasions where the things were just undeniably serendipitous to the point that there is no other explanation other than God reaching out and making his presence known. So that's what happened to me last night, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it unfolded, but I got to set it up with a little bit of context so that, you understand what's going on here. As you may know, I live in Portland, Oregon, have for the last 7 years, but I'm from Alabama, which is across the entire country. It's 2,500 miles away. So I moved out here 7 years ago. It's been great. I have lots of fond memories here, lots of great friends I've made, but it's time for me to return back to my home in Alabama. Alabama is a much more conservative place, many more God-loving people there. So that's why I'm heading back, but I won't lie, it is a very difficult emotionally thing to do, to leave behind 7 years worth of career progress and personal life progress and this beautiful home that I have, my little home office here. I love my life. I actually do. I hate Portland, but I do love my life. So it feels kind of self-destructive to go and hit the self-destruct button on all of that when things are going so well. It takes a lot of courage to do so. For one, complacency is one of the ways Satan will allow you to never fully grow. Is he'll give you just enough to appease your appetite and not enough to appease your true ambition. And so it would be very easy for me to just stay here, stay comfortable, never actually buy a home, continue renting, stay here and continue to be unhappy with the politicians who continue to enact these socialist views that I feel like are basically the Antichrist agenda. It would be easy for me to do that, but I can't. So that's why I finally committed to moving. And I have a move date, December 16th, which is just under a month away now. We're at like 28 days. So big deal there. Lots of celebration going on, but it is emotionally difficult to wind things down and basically say that was the end of this chapter of life. When I moved out here, I thought I was going to live and die and retire out here. I had this kind of naive dream of the West Coast being the best place to be. Mentioned before, I was not Christian at that point in time when I came out here. So I was not politically awake or spiritually awake when I moved out here. I had no idea about any of this stuff. Liberals, progressivism, leftism. I didn't think it was that different than my life in Alabama. Turns out it's extremely different, but don't want to get into all that. Okay, let me see if I could set this up. So last night, I am just hanging out, and I was going to do an afternoon episode. And, I tend to do that around 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I'd already done my gym session for the day, and I was trying to think, like, what stories do I want to cover in my podcast? Do I just want to go over some fitness questions? And, I just wasn't feeling... The news was pretty lame that day. There wasn't much to cover, and I just honestly wasn't feeling that motivated to sit down and talk for a little while. I was a little low energy. I was kind of just thinking I'm going to sit around, watch the news, cook a pizza, hang out with my dog, just, take it easy. Have like a me day, right? That was my plan. And so I get on Rumble, and I'm like, what can I watch? I had like an hour to kill before it was 7 p.m. for dinner time. I do intermittent fasting, so I don't get to eat anything until my eating window. And I'm very disciplined about it. So I'm just like trying to figure out how can I kill an hour's worth of time so that I can start eating my pizza and desserts and all that stuff. Well, I get on Rumble and I decide to check one of my favorite journalists' channels, who is Greg Reese. And he does a report called the Reese Report. It's usually like 4 or 5 minute long videos. And he actually works for Alex Jones over at InfoWars. And he tends to send these videos as part of InfoWars episodes. But you can also watch them standalone on his channel. So that's what I was doing. And this is what you're looking at here. This is his Rumble channel. And gosh, I watched, like half a dozen of these. World War trans, communist China rigging elections. There's crazy stuff about the Grand Canyon in here. Really good alternative news that you're not going to get anywhere else. This one about Brazil is extremely important. You should watch that, the election fraud happening there. And then I watched this one. California is now castrating children from all 50 states. Okay, so what does that have to do with the proof that God exists and all this stuff? So one last time, I'll tell you, I'm just hanging out, a little bit sad, about the move and thinking about my family in Huntsville. That's the city in Alabama that I'm moving to. And, how life is going to be so different and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, just give me a distraction. All I want to do is just watch some news, watch some conspiracy theories. And so I queue up this. Let's press play. It's only a 3 or 4 minute long thing, so just hang out with me. We're going to watch this.
This summer, Chloe Cole spoke out against California's passing of SB 107, testifying that both her and her parents were manipulated and bullied by the state to undergo destructive, life-changing surgeries. And while Florida bans puberty blockers and so-called sexual reassignment surgeries for minors, California Governor Gavin Newsom signs a bill allowing children from any state in the country to go to California for transgender medical procedures without parental consent. California is being hailed by the death cult as a transgender surgery sanctuary state, now providing chemical and surgical castrations for all of America's children. According to this new law, California can take emergency jurisdiction over any child from anywhere if there's a disagreement between the parent and the state of California over how to treat a child's gender distress. SB 107 states that taking a child away from the child's parents is justifiable if it is done to pursue gender transition procedures in California, and allows for the state to wage child custody claims against out-of-state parents. SB 107 forbids healthcare providers from providing medical information related to gender identity procedures to a child's parent, even if sought under a subpoena. After permanently mutilating her own adopted child, Kathy Molig has been working full-time for California nonprofit Trans Family Support Services, where she reaches out to hundreds of children all across the country, luring them to California to castrate themselves. She often does so without the parents' knowledge.
I work with a lot of youth before they tell their families, and helping them in shaping what that looks like.
Her work focuses on conservative communities where parents may not approve of having their children castrated.
We have kids coming from all over the country for our virtual groups. We also opened a chapter in Huntsville, Alabama, because the people in red states really need as much support as they can get from us allies, in particular in states like California and Oregon and Washington.
For whatever reason, people are allowing this incredibly evil attack against their own children. And recently, Lara Logan interviewed a UN insider who explained to her why children are the biggest target.
I get it, but I don't get it. The children. You gotta, I have such a problem with this. You gotta explain this one to me. And he said, well, first of all, you're looking at it the wrong way. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, they don't define children the way you do. They don't define the world the way you do. The choices that you face are not their choices. Right? They look at it completely differently. And I said, well, okay, so how do they look at it? And he said, for them, everything is defined by their one fundamental, all-consuming purpose. I said, which is what? He said, to defeat God. For them, the younger you are, the closer you are to God, the more pain they can inflict on God. So the more you can make a baby or a small child suffer, the greater your victory over God. And that is the only consideration for them.
Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Rewind. Did you guys
From us
hear
allies in
Children
this part
castrated.
right here?
We have kids coming from all over the country for our virtual groups. We also opened a chapter
Listen.
in Huntsville, Alabama.
What did I start this conversation saying? What is Josh's hometown? Where has Josh been planning to move back to for a year? Long before this video ever came out. This video came out it came out 2 weeks ago. Okay? I've been planning to move back to Huntsville for over a year. And I've been asking God, is this the right thing for me to do? Am I going the right way? Is this all part of your plan? Am I making a terrible decision? Should I just stay in Oregon? This is how God works, guys. This is what I say when people who are agnostic and atheists, they really struggle to understand how somebody can say that they have proof that God exists, because what they think is that proof would come in the form of God shouting down from the clouds as a voice in your ear saying, I am God, here's what you should do. That's not how God operates. I mean, there are occasions of that happening in the Bible, obviously, but in mass, that's not how God brings about his presence to individuals. God works through us and through circumstances to reveal his plan. And so what you do, if you actually have a sincere desire to connect with God, is you ask him for signs. You say, God, please communicate with me in a way that I'll be able to understand. Show me something that I'll recognize that confirms you're listening to me and that I'm on the right path. That's how you pray. And that's exactly how I've prayed for the last year. All I need is some confirmation from you to know that you're listening and that I'm making the right things. I'm going in a path that's going to bring me closer to you and enable me to serve you. And so I'm just minding my business last night, waiting on cooking a frozen pizza, pull up a random internet video. I mean, this satanic trans surgeon right here, whatever the fuck she is, she could be opening up her stupid little castration center in any city of the world. Any city. How many cities are in the United States? Let's just do this. How many cities in the United States? How many cities are in the USA? And this is come on. I just need a straightforward answer, guys. Over 5, is that 50,000? 76 of the incorporated places have fewer than. Okay. The odds are 1 in a fucking billion is the point that I'm trying to make here. Okay? Have you heard of Huntsville, Alabama? Has anybody who's actually not from Alabama heard of Huntsville, Alabama? It's not like it's a place where you can just turn on a random news clip and they'll name drop. Oh yeah, we're going to go open up a brand new facility in Huntsville, specifically talking about these satanic agenda of mutilating children. So I have my marching orders. I have my assurance that God is real. I know what I have to do. My mission is to go to Alabama, to Huntsville, Alabama specifically, and stop Kathy Mulhig, founder of Trans Family Support Services, dead in her tracks. You are not going to continue to do this in my state. I'm going to drive you all the way out of the state and hopefully out of business completely. You're not going to continue to mutilate children for your own sexual perversion. Not on my watch, not on the Christians' watch, not on God's watch. That'll be the end of this. So, that was my night last night. Very, very happy about it. As I said, huge news. Anytime God drops by, that's a good night. Good night. Really, really happy about that. Very motivated. It makes it crystal clear that we're on the right path. That even more than that, I have marching orders. I know exactly what I need to do once I get there. Really looking forward to that. I'm going to need to find some friends and some connections when I get there to make sure this whole thing comes to an end immediately. So follow along because we're going to want to see how this plays out. I'm excited about it. And the truth is, like, I really don't want to get involved with politics in terms of running for office, and I don't want to be a public figure and draw attention to myself and that kind of stuff. I really don't. I don't like being the center of attention. But whatever it takes, whatever discomfort is required for me so that we can stop that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable I am. This is part of being in God's army. You get recruited, you get drafted, you don't get to argue, oh, I don't want to do that. Somebody's going to call me a bigot. Somebody's going to say I'm transphobic. Who gives a fuck what these people say? These people work for Satan. Really? Are you that worried about what the demonic horde has to say about you? Do you think fucking Legolas from Lord of the Rings and Sam and Frodo were worried about what the orcs were saying about them? This is an orc right here. This is an orc. All right. That's my proof that God exists. Not even the first time, by the way, that this has happened in my life. That's how I came to God and truly had to stop fighting against it and just say, okay, he's real. You got me. The exact same, a similar situation, I should say, occurred to me several years ago. That's how I started my belief and switched from being agnostic to, full on Christian. I can't deny it. I got my proof. I saw it. It is what it is. It's like a car. If you get hit by a car and there's video footage of it, you can't deny the fact that you were hit by a car. And that's how it's been in my life. God came, smacked me upside the head, gave me very clear evidence that he was real and that he was listening, that I needed him. And it's been a beautiful thing since then. It's also been very difficult since then because the secular world, the worldly people, they want to gaslight you. They want to call you crazy. This has been happening for thousands of years, by the way. So it's not like some phenomenon where suddenly Christians have to walk a very difficult path of being persecuted and made fun of and blah, blah, blah. Nothing new under the sun here, okay? They nailed Jesus Christ to the cross. Said he was blasphemous. A liar. And they can say all the same things about me. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. All I know is we're going to go to Alabama. and we're going to confront the demonic horde that is trying to corrupt my state. They've already destroyed Oregon, Washington, California, New York, all these other liberal strongholds. The damage is done there. Maybe one day, in a number of years, somebody will be able to come and fix these things. But for now, we need people who are fully awake, fully willing to fight, put their name and reputation behind it, to not let the good parts of America be overwhelmed by this filth. Just filth. I mean, you guys heard the video. It's criminal. You have California saying that your child, when you live in a different state, can secretly go to California without your permission, completely without your knowledge. Not only will California then give them any surgeries or hormonal medication the child asks for, they won't even stop there. They will then try to sue you, the parent, in some other state to steal your child. I'm not exaggerating. They said they're going to take custody of your kid if you don't agree with these gender affirmation surgeries and treatments. That the state of California can take custody of your child who is not from California, who came to California without parental consent. They can take legal custody, ownership of your child, start performing surgeries, shoving drugs down their throat, and the kid is theirs now. It's not yours. It's not your kid. It's not the kid that you and your spouse had and created together. It's not yours. You guys don't think this stuff is a big deal? You guys think this is just like, oh, well, just let California be their crazy self. You know, if they want to have more lenient rules in California, then let them. What's the big deal? This is the big deal. That they go and try to poach children from other states without the parents' permission and literally steal them, corrupt them, turn them into gender freaks, and destroy the rest of their lives. We did the detransition story yesterday about that poor girl who at 10 years old was convinced by the trans community to undergo gender affirmation surgery and is now in a perpetual cycle of depression and self-hatred. And then when she tried to talk to the exact same community who gaslit her into getting these surgeries, they all turned her back on her and said, well, these were your decisions. You as an individual have to own these decisions. Okay, she was 10 years old. Since when did we expect 10-year-olds to make lifelong decisions? That's the level of people that we have to fight back. They do not have the same moral compass that Christians do, period. So, do I even want to talk about anything else this morning? I got 10 minutes before I got to jump over, to my 9 to 5 and bring home the bacon and all that kind of stuff. I made a couple notes in my phone. There's a couple of other really good stories I do want to talk about today, and it may have to wait until an afternoon broadcast just because I got, work to do. Yeah, I mean, I got 3 really good stories that I want to talk about looking at my notes. I'll give you a high-level preview of what we'll be able to talk about later today. You got news coming out of Arizona. We know that as the midterms wrapped up, Carrie Lake got her election stolen from her. Carrie Lake and Blake Masters. You had the voting machines where, 20% or even like 30% of the voting machines the day of the elections went down, knowing that Republicans vote day of the elections, specifically because they're trying to avoid election fraud and interference. That's not a functioning election. When 1 out of 5 or even 1 out of 3 of the people who go to vote are turned away because the voting machines aren't working, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So we'll talk about more, election fraud stuff and what Carrie Lake is doing to fight back. Good news is the story may not be over. The dust may not be settled there in Arizona. Another story I wanted to talk more about is we had Trump's big announcement a couple nights ago that he's going to be running in 2024. As mentioned, that didn't surprise anybody. But there has been some debate internally amongst us Trump supporters over the quality of his announcement speech. Over, is he true to the message that we want him to be true to, which is very much America first. And by when we say America first, we mean a Christian America first. We mean not a Jewish America. And it wasn't so clear that he is still as intentional with that agenda as he is kind of a more generic, just Republican GOP agenda of, we got to fix the economy, we got to fix the border, parental rights. So, I mean, look, we agree with all of that stuff. Nobody is debating whether or not we need to stop trans surgeries from happening and fix the economy and fix the border, stop China. Like, obviously, all of that needs to happen. But the differentiating factor with Trump versus DeSantis is that we thought, look, here I am, just giving away the whole story. I'll put a plug in that, and we'll talk more about it later because it really is good. So listen for that this afternoon. One other story that I wanted to give you a preview about that we'll talk more about this afternoon is The Matrix. Previously it was a trilogy. I guess now there's a fourth Matrix movie that I haven't watched. I've only seen the original trilogy. And listen, The Matrix came out, I think, in the 90s. I was still a young man. I was a teenager. And big deal at the time, lots of special effects, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of a budget. And, it was basically just like a high budget sci-fi action thriller that sold a lot of movie tickets. People really liked it. It was well received. And yeah, that's all good and well. But there's a lot more to The Matrix. And I want to talk more about it, when I have more time. I have a whopping 7 minutes before I need to switch over and do my other stuff. So we're going to talk about The Matrix and that it's a much rarer, more meaningful story than meets the eye. And where it is on the timeline of America's history, that's kind of what I really want to focus on because, maybe you get it, the story that The Matrix is actually telling. It presents itself as this story of AI and robots have taken over the world and this is humanity's last chance to fight back against them. That's the story of The Matrix on the surface. But if that's what you think The Matrix is about, you haven't been red-pilled yet. And you got to remember, red pill comes from The Matrix. That saying, take the red pill or the blue pill, that's a scene in The Matrix. And so we'll talk a lot more about what the red pill really means in connection to The Matrix. All right, that's what we'll talk about this afternoon. I just wanted to get on here and tell you guys that God is real. When you talk to him, when you ask him for help and you ask him for guidance and direction in your life, he does listen and he delivers. He delivers so concisely that it's irrefutable. That to say otherwise, the odds are just 1 in a fucking billion. That I sit here and watch some random internet news clip just trying to kill time while I'm waiting for my pizza, and he name drops my hometown across the country where I just so happen to be planning a move for the last year. And obviously am very passionate about stopping all this trans stuff. Like, it's too many coincidences. It's too intentional. It's too specific to think that, just a lucky coincidence that you happen to be moving back there and that you happen to be fighting hard in the spiritual battle. Just a coincidence. Not a coincidence, people. God knows what he's doing. He has a plan. He needs us in order to help execute his plan on earth. I shouldn't say he needs us. God doesn't necessarily need anything for humans. He wants us to come together in servitude of him and fighting back Lucifer, who has been problematic for quite a while. He wants us to win the worldly war. We may have already won the spiritual war by committing ourselves to Christ every day and taking up the cross and pursuing him, but we are still in battle for what's going on here on earth. that's where he does have to recruit us and we have to work for him. Okay, guys, have a great morning or afternoon in Banda's case. I know you've already wrapped up your afternoon, so have a good evening. I will see you all again soon. Take care.